Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by Alli Truttmann, who is the CEO and founder of Wicked Technologies. Alli is certainly no stranger to the Louisville community. Everybody around here knows her from her startup story. And we haven't talked in a while, so it's just an opportunity to bring Alli on the program and let's tell her story about what she's been up to lately. So Alli, why don't you first just introduce yourself and then we'll jump in from there.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And thanks for having me. So I'm Alli Truttmann, the founder and CEO of Wicked Technologies. A lot of Louisville folks know me from Wicked Sheets, my first baby, which was a moisture wicking and cooling bed sheet business that helped folks with night sweats and hot flashes. And we basically rebranded and transitioned to Wicked Technologies when we added our most recent product line, again in moisture management, if you will. The new product line is called the Wicked Smart Pad, and it's a moisture detection sensorized bed pad that detects moisture or incontinence events specifically and sends alerts to caregivers. So it was developed for my grandmother when she was experiencing some of these issues in her end of life journey. But, at the core, I am just a person that likes to build products that solve problems for real people that oftentimes people don't like to talk about, and that's sweat and pee. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's we could just stop right there.
Yeah, right? Drop the mic.
So obviously you didn't go to college to be a sweat person. So
Right.
so how did this come about? What really inspired you to go down this path?
Yeah, well, and a lot of you that have heard my story, I actually went to school. This piece might be missing. I actually went to school to be a child psychologist. So
Hmm.
I was a therapist for children with autism, Asperger's, and ADHD. And I went ahead and got some, additional continuing ed degrees in medical fitness and personal training to try and help some of my kids that I was working with, my kiddos I was working with some of the physical ailments that usually, come with autism or some of the specialized diets that kids are on. And I was leading a life as like a very physically active therapist, running alongside of tickling kiddos as we're going through therapy and, teaching some how to talk, teaching some how to walk, those kinds of things. And as fate would have it, I tore my ACL playing soccer on a co-ed soccer team. And after I had my surgery, I was bedridden. And, the lifestyle I used to keep, I was active and I played soccer. I sweat pretty much all the time, and it wasn't any sort of like question mark condition. But when you're laying in bed and not being active and you're sweating excessively, you're like, what's going on? So that started my entrepreneurial journey. I basically created Wicked Sheets as a product for myself. And then upon diving in further, understanding that there were a lot more people in the United States and in the world that suffered from night sweats and hot flashes for one reason or another, whether it was medical or viral. And then fast forward, my grandparents sleeping on Wicked Sheets, and then her health journey took her to a different kind of path of moisture management. And so really everything that I've done has been guided by the path that has been affecting me or my family. And then trying to take psychology in the background of how can I help people? Maybe it's through
Hmm.
products and not therapy.
Yeah, that's it's a great story. And it, do I remember this correctly? Like you first like started with like finding t-shirts and sewing t-shirts together or was experimenting with different materials. Is that
Yeah, and actually, just like the shirt you're wearing right now, although it was no, actually, I think he was wearing a Nike Dry Fit shirt. My cousin,
yeah.
we were talking about this at a family function because once you get diagnosed with hyperhidrosis, which is what I have, mine comes excessive sweating in the form of night sweats. Some of my cousins and other family members get excessive sweating on their palms, some in their armpits, some in their feet. But anyway, so of course, at Easter brunch, I'm talking about this with my family, and we're kind of all just, empathizing with one another. And my cousin was wearing a Nike Dry Fit golf shirt. And I said, well, you're going to come home one day and we're going to cut up those golf shirts and sew them into bed sheets. And everybody started laughing. And then my dad was like, that's a pretty good idea. Is anybody doing that? Are there like Under Armour sheets? And this was 2008. There was no one doing anything like this. We were the first to market, and then we had a competitor pop up shortly thereafter. And it was one of those light bulb moments of this is an opportunity. And my background didn't necessarily say I was best suited for it, but I was certainly my first customer. But yeah, it started from kind of a family joke and about cutting up golf shirts and turning them into bed sheets.
That's hilarious. And yeah, that would be a pretty expensive way of creating sheets, but
Yes.
it served as an inspiration. That's why it was most important. And it's funny. So many people have startup creative ideas, but probably don't follow through with them. You
Right,
said,
exactly.
that's actually, something that might actually happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm lucky that I had, the support from my family. My friends have never supported me. I'm just teasing. They're wonderful. But unless you get in the entrepreneurial community like yourself or the folks that we would hang out with at Venture Connectors, anybody you tell that to, they're like, you're going to do what? And
Yeah.
they're so risk averse. But then you get around in the entrepreneurial or startup crowd and they're like, yeah, get it, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. My background was in IT, it was corporate IT and all that stuff. And then I ended up in a startup role, working with a startup guy. And then I decided, I can do this, kind of go out and coach and advise and help lots of people. And I thought that sounded like a lot of fun. And so the first thing I did before I started was I went and talked to some of my friends from my past and said, hey, I got this idea.
Yeah.
And most of them were like, are you nuts? Are you?
John, you forgot to call me. I would have been like, go get him,
Oh
man. No,
yeah. Well,
no,
and so
so wonderful.
one of my friends who did not say I was nuts, because actually he was kind of at the same point in his journey. He was ready to leave his corporate gig and start something. And he gave me just advice that stuck with me ever since. He said, "Don't ever ask for directions from people who haven't been where you're going." And
Oh, that's so smart and wise. Good for
yeah,
him.
yeah.
And
So I'm
good
like,
for you.
yeah. And that was just one of those light bulb moments where I went, yeah, I still get chills when I think about, that was that moment where I went, yeah, I've been asking all the wrong people because they're in their corporate jobs and they don't understand this idea of wanting to work for yourself and go out on your own.
Absolutely.
So,
Well,
all right.
and you have changed the lives of so many of your clients. I mean, that's just a testament that you didn't need that advice from those other people. You already had it in you. So I think
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. 7 years later, I can't complain. Right. So,
Good.
so, so for you, what was the biggest surprise, when you finally took that leap and started, was it when people started, or what was the biggest surprise that really kind of hit you?
I did a talk on this one time and I was shocked that every business cliche about startups was true.
Mm,
That's the biggest surprise. You can't work on your company when you're working in your company. You have to start delegating. You can't do like all of that stuff. I was like, well, why can't I? There's nothing I can't do. Kind of that invincibility, I guess, defense
yeah.
mechanism that I had. But I was surprised because I was reading a lot of the books, Startup Financials for Dummies, startup, all the startup
Yeah.
books when you first get going. And I was I'm an old entrepreneur at this point, so I was still reading books then. I didn't have ChatGPT to tell me what to do,
Right.
but I think what's been most surprising is that those are true and they wouldn't be so popular if they weren't. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to live through it to believe it. And
Yeah.
that's been a blessing and a curse all at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I know I would do one of the advice I got early on was, be choosy about your networking, right? And, there's a lot of net socializing out there that won't help you at all. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll figure that I'm smarter than that. And
Right.
then, a year or so in, I'm like, man, I'm spending a lot of time at a lot of events getting the same stack of business cards that, aren't going to help me at all. And
Right.
COVID is what saved me from that. COVID forced everything shut down, and suddenly I had to build my business other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean, COVID, I think, afforded people who are creative types to just say, all right, I'm just going to reimagine this because I have
yeah,
to. It's now my
yeah,
survival.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And it was cool for a few months, but better business came out the other side. So that's what that's what matters.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
what were some of the early pain points that really hit you that you maybe weren't expecting?
Yeah, well, and so since I've spun up the next product line, I'm kind of having these reminders, these constant reminders as we just finished a round a couple of months ago. We're now selling B2B, so I'm having to kind of relearn some ideal
Mm,
customer profile stuff. But some of the early stuff that I learned that I say now shortened my learning curve in this kind of like second iteration of the next product line. The biggest fall on my face moment was when I ordered my first batch of fabric from a supplier who I did not have a contract with. I just ordered it and sent them lots of money, and I got it and 40% of it was damaged. And I called to say, well, all of this is damaged. What are you going to do about it? You're going to either send me new stuff or refund my money. And they're like, well, lead time's about 10 weeks, which is pretty standard in textiles. But we're not going to refund it or replace it because we don't have like a contract between us that has a refund or a warranty in it. And I was like, oh no. So now we're doing business with lots of suppliers in the Wicked Smart Pad realm, and everything I do, people will probably think I'm like almost too buttoned up on it. But I'm like, do you have an
yeah,
NDA? Do you have a contract? What's it? Can we make sure
yeah,
somebody reads that to make sure there's a warranty or indemnity or a whatever clause in there? So I feel like that has helped tremendously. And then just making sure, and I never really fell on my face on this with Wicked Sheets, but continuing to put the customer first at whatever it is that we were doing. Listening to the customer, not over promising like features and product things and enhancements and things like that, but listening to their needs and making sure that they're first, because at the end of the day, you could make the right product for the wrong group, or you can
mhm,
make a product that nobody needs. And so I think
yeah,
that's another big like just lesson that I didn't have to learn the hard way, thankfully, but it's something that I have to practice every single day.
yeah. So you mentioned something there about your niche has changed. You're B2B now, and is it a product that people want to pay for and all that kind of stuff? That that's a challenge in your space. I know I've worked quite a bit in healthcare and long-term care. Uh, they don't they're cheap. they
Right.
they I mean I
Everybody wants it.
apologize to my
Who's
friends.
going
I'm
to
actually
pay for
playing
it?
I'm playing golf tomorrow with one of my good friends in that industry, but
We
it's
won't tell them.
we won't say you won't see this till after. Um, you know, it's a completely different business model from sheets selling to individuals. So how did you kind of work through that change?
Well, so I think the way it's going to work best is kind of also a new acronym, B to B to C. So we're selling B2B, and then they are actually most likely going to pass on the cost to the families, the end
Yeah.
user, or they'll bundle it up in one of the care levels. And it's really dependent on which community we go into. So the long-term care, the skilled nursing side of things, a lot, or even life plan communities, a lot of those can actually absorb the cost themselves because they're getting payments up front. And
Hmm.
until we get the Medicaid, Medicare kind of reimbursement thing figured out, which we're on the path, but it's just going to take a little bit of time. We were totally prepared for that. That's why we
Yeah.
went beachhead market, private pay, assisted living,
Yeah.
memory care. Um, but I think it always ends with the C at the end of it, D to C or B to B to C.
Yeah.
And so long as we can make the case that it is better for the end user, then it ends up being a no-brainer. And so we've
Yeah.
been able to work with a few of our first customers. We have three pretty significant contracts right now with some assisted living groups, and are piloting with a skilled nursing facility. They've really helped us help
Mhm.
them because it is kind of a new product in this. It's easy to roll out a software product in some of these places. Or I say easy.
Yeah.
but a product that everyone's like, we need this, but who pays for it?
Yeah. The old
You
follow
know,
the money thing. You got to follow the money.
exactly. Always comes down to that. But we've been really, really lucky to have great pilot partners. And I received some grant funding from the NIH early on that helped us kind of work through a little bit of the feasibility and questioning of, is this something that we can do? So I also give a lot of credit to the NIH and the National Institute on Aging for helping me figure out some of these roadblocks before we ran into them.
Yeah, it's great. That's a complicated world to navigate too. The grant world. Uh,
Yes. You have to just be prepared that when you write your grant, you're not going to see a penny of it until at least a year later. And I
yeah,
thought that was crazy too. I'm like, well, you find out in 3 months. Why don't you get the money? And then I was like, oh, that's why it's the government.
yeah, yeah, and and sometimes it's, well, we asked for this and we're giving you, a third of that,
Right,
but
right.
still do that thing you said you were going to do.
Yeah, I still want the same outcome, but I'm just gonna, slightly take a haircut off of that. And you're like,
Yeah,
a haircut?
yeah, I've seen some of those things. Well, let's turn to, I would like to find out about kind of work-life balance and family and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the life of a founder is not normal. So how do you find, that balance and everything in your daily life?
Yeah, well, I was unmarried and without a child when I started Wicked Sheets.
Yeah.
So a little bit, that helped a little bit because I was accountable for myself. And my kind of like promise to myself when I first started was if you have enough money to pay for health insurance, then you can take this risk. That was like always my like, will it pay you enough money or give you enough money to pay for your health insurance? Because I had worked really hard on my degrees and things like that. And God love my parents. They're like, you went to school for 10 years to be a therapist, and now you're going to start something you don't have any idea about. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even sew, but I'm going to make a product that's about sewing. But anyway,
Yeah.
so it definitely takes a special type of spouse. And my husband is very understanding, and we are absolutely different, like polar opposites.
Hmm.
I am an extroverted, I will say optimistic or cautiously optimistic risk taker, and he is introverted as they come and very poignant and planned. So it takes a lot of communication and understanding to have like that overlap in your spouse. Although I have seen it work also where two people are the same, but so long as they keep each other sane while they're on the path,
Yeah.
you don't have somebody
My,
go
my wife
rogue.
and I are total opposites too. It works.
Yes, yes. And then you throw a child into it. So I was an older mom because I did focus on the business, and I don't think I was also, kind of lucky that I didn't have this like I feel guilty, I haven't started my life. I never felt that, and maybe it was because I was a therapist and I was around kids for a really long time. I started
Mm.
babysitting when I was 10 years old, so like I've been around kids, so I didn't have that maternal yearning like I think a lot of my friends did. So I felt like it was the right time to have my son, and he's been the greatest blessing and joy in my life. It has been just so wonderful. And my kind of personal rule of thumb is you can be 100% during the day if you can be 100% with your son when you're home. And so those hours before school and after school and before bedtime, they are nothing in comparison to, missing a childhood. And I do have to travel a lot more, but he feels my love and support and all that stuff. And I just have to, know that I'm doing the best job that I can. And if he sees mom working really hard, it's going to be better than him seeing mom being a lazy bones on the couch. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I, I really like what you said there. And let me play it back, make sure I understood it. You said you can give 100% in the day as long as you can still give 100% to him at home. Is that just
Yeah.
what you said? That's
Yeah,
a,
exactly.
I've never heard that anybody say that quite that way. That's actually really, really good.
Well, thanks. And I think there's also, I don't know if you have interviewed Maggie Harlow yet, but she was also a working mom, and she has this rock star son, Jack Harlow, this famous rapper from Louisville,
Oh,
Kentucky.
sure.
And she talks about how she was a working mom and she was working really hard to start her businesses and run her businesses and had to travel and be gone and do trade shows and all that stuff. And I will just tell you, when she said And guess what? He turned out just fine. I was like, okay, yeah. I don't think my son's gonna be a rapper as good as Jack, but he might do something cool.
Yeah, you never know. That's a cool story. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Well,
have to
thanks for
see if I can
asking.
get her on the program. I'll tip off my marketing team, see what they.
Yeah, she started a new business recently. She's doing some speaking coaching, which is, I think, so important for entrepreneurs, anybody in our space, to be able to stand up and have a captive audience and be
Yeah,
quippy and fast on your feet is really important. So,
yeah,
yeah, there's
yeah,
just a little tip.
yeah. She's got a little stage presence experience in her family too. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
exactly.
so how back up back kind of the business stuff. It's something triggered there. Uh, you've kind of gone through these evolutions of I mean, similar but different, right? So how are you just how does your mind work to stay relevant that way? I mean, is it just that you're wired that way to always be thinking, or
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that the short answer is yes. I am wired that way to just I'm hyper and I'm extroverted and I like to think that I'm observant maybe of things that frustrate people or things
Mhm.
that are daily life hindrances. And I've done a little bit of entrepreneur coaching at like Bellarmine in their MBA class, and they're like, "Well, how do you just come up with an idea?" I'm like, or like in their projects, they're like, how do you just come up with something? I don't have anything. And I'm like, just spend a day in your daily life and figure out what frustrates you, or
Yeah,
spend some time at a public setting and figure out what is frustrating people. How can you be better, faster, bigger, or stronger than something that's in existence? And I think my brain is just wired to see things like that. I mean, even like I was booking a conference room and they let me book a room that was actually not open to anybody, but I still was able to do it. And I was just like, man, I wish they could, and I
yeah,
had a couple of thoughts about that. But I think the catch on that is the catch 22 is you have to also be quick enough or reactive enough to say, that's a bad idea. Don't waste your time thinking about it, because you could
yeah,
go down a rabbit hole and end up starting three businesses and be like, why don't I just focus on this one thing? And so that's a lot of surround yourself with people that keep you grounded and keep you on track. And I will tell you, I have a very strong board that really keeps me focused. And kind of one of the promises, going back to the business of, we want you to do the Wicked Smart Pad, but we don't want anything to interfere. So the question was, will you keep doing Wicked Sheets? And at that point, I'd been running Wicked Sheets for 16 years. So we have a
yeah,
pretty good presence built up. We're doing no marketing on it, and it's doing fairly well. So I just kind of had to say, yep, I want that to keep happening. I'm going to think about it every once in a while, but you guys need to keep me honest and stay on my path. So that's really helpful as well.
yeah. Having great advisors is so important. I had I've had I probably talk to somebody once every week or two that's either have started a business or think about starting a business. And one of the things that I'll ask them is essentially that is there a market for this? What makes you think there's a market for this? I've had some people come with some crazy ideas, and I'm like, really? You think?
You think that's going to
Let's
sell,
let's
man?
let's do the math here.
Go to the mall and get out a piece of paper and start taking polls, because I don't
Yeah.
know about that.
If you can get 100% of the business, is it enough to pay? You know, there's some people have some, but I don't like to. I also don't like to squelch anybody's creative thoughts. But at the same time, it's like let's look at this little
Yeah.
strategically. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so
They're
it's
lucky to have you to like keep them in line and focused, and also ask some tough questions that they might not have thought of otherwise. Yeah.
yeah. Of course, most of those people never hire me, because
Oh, well, of course, of course.
nor would I want them to. I guess would probably.
I was gonna say, but you can also fire clients, right?
Yes, I've done that a few times. So
Exactly.
uh, yeah. So what's on the horizon? Obviously, you got this rollout going on that's consuming you. So what do you see that looking like over the next, I guess, 12 to 18 minutes? 12 to 18
That
months.
over the next 12 to 18 minutes, I'll be pitching two more
Months.
people.
I choked getting
Um,
that out.
no, totally fine. So yeah, we are planning a major rollout with the second largest senior living provider in the country, and that will kick off September 1. So they want us to
Wow.
be on all of their communities by June of next year. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
And we do go on site for most of the initial rollouts. We do try to encourage the train the trainer model. The Wicked Smart Pad is very easy to install. So if we can do a couple of trainings with the key nurses or care staff at the buildings, usually it catches on, and we have supplemental videos and stuff. But a lot of it's going to be focused on deployments and rollouts, partnerships with different care levels or payer models. So I mentioned we're doing something with a skilled nursing facility. We're actually looking at wound care data. So how
Hmm.
incontinence affects wounds, and a lot of times those that have wounds already in these units, they can't put on any sort of brief or disposable product because the skin breakdown is so severe and they need fresh
Yeah.
air. You remember from your long-term care stuff, hearing these things. I'm
Well,
sure.
I've also been through it with both parents in the last 5 years. So
Oh, I'm
I,
so sorry.
I,
Yeah, I mean,
I know.
it is something, but the ability for us to have quantifiable data, I think that supports our thesis for skilled nursing, home health, and potentially going down the direct to consumer path. But we want to prove out
Yeah.
those pathways first and make sure
Mhm.
that we, like I said in the beginning, have that roadblock already hurdled before we even step up to it.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna keep us really busy. We've had a lot of great engineers help us to commercialize the product. And so now we get to work on some fun stuff that are like product enhancements that some of our customers have requested. And we made the case for them, so we get to do a little bit more engineering work. So that's really fun.
Yeah. That's cool. Very cool.
Thank
So,
you.
kind of last question I usually ask a entrepreneurial person is what that young lady or young man out there that's got this idea in their head, what
Mhm.
advice would you give them?
So probably unfortunately they've probably heard this before, but they haven't. They need to do it again and again and again and again. If you have $50, you can start a landing page and you can put up the product or service that you are interested in either promoting or selling. And it literally costs you $50 in your time to design it. And I encourage them to put it out on their free social channels, LinkedIn,
Mhm.
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and see what response they get or what feedback they get. If there is an opportunity for people to say purchase a product to even quantify it further, allow them to purchase it, but then refund the money or have a disclaimer in there that says,
Hmm.
kind of like a Kickstarter disclaimer, because I
Yeah.
think that's gonna be the best validation and learning tool. And it'll kind of, take the onus off of someone telling them, man, I don't think this idea is gonna float. But for $50 and a couple of hours, and sometimes good criticism, sometimes harsh criticism, you'll learn a lot if
Yeah,
you
you
can
will.
prove out that business case. So I think that is probably my best bit of advice. And just don't be afraid to talk to people about it. Talk to people constantly about it. And
Yeah.
you'll start realizing, unless you're tone deaf, you'll start realizing whether it's a good or a bad idea.
Yeah. You got to watch out for that confirmation bias. A lot of people
Yeah,
listen to what they want to hear.
yeah, exactly. They drill in on it. My flag is planted here. I'm doing it. And you're like, "Hmm, those are 2-star reviews."
Yes. Oh, so true. Well, it's been a pleasure catching up with you and hearing what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. As we've talked about, everything all these products are stuff that I've seen the need for in my own family. So I know that it's something that is worthwhile. So I appreciate you. Appreciate the leadership you're providing in the community. If people want to find out more, how's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, Alli Truttmann on LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. And then visit wickedsmartpad.com. And there's a contact us and learn more. And we still have wickedsheets.com if you're interested in buying any moisture wicking and cooling bed sheets.
Yes, excellent. Well, thank you again for coming on the program. It's been great seeing you again.
You too. Thanks, John. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.